we really need to record your attendance today. So I'm going to ask that you go down to the bottom to the chat function. And in the chat function, I'm going to ask you to sign in. Again, this is just for those of you that are new to Old Bills or you skipped 2019. So please sign in, and it is necessary for us to have a record of that. So thank you. Also want you to know that today's session is going to be recorded so that we can share this with others. And not everyone was able to join us today. So thanks for doing that. Thanks to everyone. I'm seeing a lot of people sign in. Thank you for doing that. We are going to mute the mics and keep the videos off just to have a lack of distraction unless someone is talking. So if you have a question as we're going through this presentation, please just put it into the chat. That would be fabulous. Thank you. Before we dive in, and as you're signing in, I really want to acknowledge some key community members who are essential to Old Bills and who are listed in the handouts that you received. First, starting with the Board of Directors of the Community Foundation. They have supported this event for 24 years and have given the resources to administer the event. We want to talk about the co-challengers. They join Mr. and Mrs. Old Bill in creating the matching that goes to each of you. Co-challengers also fund the competitive grants program that we have. So as you apply for a grant, these are the dollars that are applied to your grants in the fall and early December. I want to thank the Run Committee, the core group of volunteers that are responsible for executing Run Day. And I want to thank the staff, the team at the Community Foundation that put this together. It is definitely a team effort led by amazing people that you're going to hear from today. Make certain you thank these folks as you see them throughout the community or run into them on Zoom. I really want to say that this idea was Mr. Old Bill had this idea as he was out for his morning run. And it really inspired him that we would combine everything that we love in Jackson. Competition, to walk and be social, to be social with friends, to wear costumes, to be outside, to eat, to be with our kids, to be with our dogs, and to celebrate the nonprofit community that makes Jackson so special. To give a little context to this, I'm going to go to the next slide, and it speaks to the, thank you. I see that I can do that. I want to talk a little bit about the totals from 2019. This gives you a context of the kind of funds that go into this community every year through Old Bills. Mr. and Mrs. Old Bill start with the $500,000 every year. The co-challengers and friends raised just under $3 million last year, and the community put in just under $11 million. So in 2019, a total of $14,381,000 was invested into this community. When we look at how Old Bills has done over time, oops, where'd it go? Sorry, I lost that. So the cumulative totals that have happened over the years, since 1997 to 2019, Mr. and Mrs. Old Bill have invested over $11.5 million into this community. The co-challengers and friends have done $36,766,000, and the community itself has raised over $125 million. So in its 23 years, Old Bills has raised $173 million. Without Mr. and Mrs. Old Bill, none of this would be possible, and fundraising in this community would look very, very different. Make certain if you have any questions, please put those into the chat. I am going to turn this over to Executive Vice President and our Chief Financial Officer, Karen Coleman.
Thank you, Lori. I get the pleasure of going over the logistics of how the matching grants work, some of the rules and procedures around the event, guidelines on contributions, and I'll conclude by hopefully providing you with some information that helps manage expectations on how you will see gifts over the course of the event. So starting with the matching grants. Organizations that participate in Old Bill's Fun Run will receive 100% of the contributions that are designated for them. The Community Foundation does not take any administrative fee in any way out of those designated contributions. So everything that your donors designate for you, you will receive at the end of the event. What the Community Foundation does do is raise the matching funds that are used to provide matching grants on designated contributions up to $30,000 per eligible organization. That first $30,000 in designated contributions receives a partial match. It is not a 1-to-1 or 100% match, and it is per eligible organization. So if you are fiscally sponsored, your fiscal sponsor will receive all the funds, including the matching grant, and it will be up to your fiscal sponsor to determine how to allocate those matching funds. The match percentage does vary from year to year. It's not 100% or dollar for dollar, so please don't indicate that to your donors when you're soliciting support through Old Bills. It is based on the amount of designated contributions that are eligible for matching relative to the total amount of matching funds that we are able to raise. It has ranged in recent years from a 45% match on that first 30,000 to a 55% match on that first 30,000. A couple of rules on the matching funds are that the matching funds can't be endowed or subsequently granted to another participating organization. The reason for that is that Mr. and Mrs. Old Bill philosophically are of the perspective that they want funds on the ground today, solving today's problems. And with regard to subsequently regranting matching funds, it's so that we don't have a local organization effectively receiving multiple matches. That said, the designated portion of your gifts can be endowed and can be regranted. So that's a point of distinction regarding what you can do with designated contributions versus what is an allowable use for your matching grant. Okay, next slide. Jumping into rules and procedures. You are accountable for knowing all of the rules and procedures that are in your packet. I'm not going to cover them all here today. We're just going to cover some highlights, some frequently asked questions, and common points of confusion. In terms of the eligibility requirements, your organization must be a 501c3 in good standing, a governmental entity, or a faith-based organization using funds raised through Old Bills for entirely non-religious charitable purposes. Obviously, there are some additional requirements that are detailed in the packet that you have received. We do require there be one contact designated per organization. That single contact person must be ready, willing, and able to receive Old Bills communications via email throughout the summer. That designated contact is responsible for sharing all information with the relevant parties within their organization, including rules about the event, procedures, fundraising, and access to donor view is that person's responsibility for reviewing gifts as they are received throughout Old Bills. If you are not going to be that person, please be sure you pass this information on to them, to whoever the party is who's going to be the Old Bills contact for your organization. In terms of use of funds, one of the rules we have is that all use of funds must be non-religious and non-political. So you may not use Old Bills grant funds for religious or political activity, including lobbying. We also ask that you refrain from box holder mailings. It's the most common complaint we get from donors in our community is that they receive too much in the way of solicitation, and they know box holder mailings is one way to limit that. Co-challenger solicitation is prohibited unless that co-challenger has an existing relationship with your organization and they have given directly to your organization in the past, in which case we consider them a donor of your organization and not a co-challenger that you are just randomly soliciting because you see the name. Funds may be used for debt retirement and for capital campaigns. There used to be a prohibition against this, and that was changed a number of years ago. So as you raise funds through the event, you can use your funds for capital campaigns and debt retirement. Next slide. Moving on to contributions. You may give online, or your donors may give online at oldbills.org. In recent years, the vast majority of donations that we receive do come in via credit card online. So make sure that you've got that information handy. This year's giving season starts on August 1st and ends at 5 p.m. on September 18th. In order to be included as a gift through Old Bills Fun Run, we have to receive the contribution during that window. If we do receive checks early in July, we will hold on to them until August 1st, but the online shopping cart won't open until August 1st, and checks that we receive after the deadline will either be returned to the donor or forwarded directly to your organization, depending on whether the donor has designated one or multiple organizations. Checks should be made payable to the Community Foundation of Jack. So hang on, there's a question. The donation period is August 1st through September 18th at 5 p.m. and that is in your materials as well. Checks should be made payable to the Community Foundation of Jackson Hole, and ideally those should be accompanied by a donor form. If your donors are procrastinators, and the vast majority of Jackson Hole does seem to fall into this camp, please encourage them to give early. And if they have not submitted or mailed a check by the last week, please ask them to give online. If they put a check in the mail on the gift deadline, we are not going to receive it in time. So that window is, we've received the gift during that window, not that it has been sent to us during that window. If you have donors who you know may be giving using a donor advised fund, please strongly encourage them to submit their grant recommendation to their donor advised fund administrator by the end of August, so that that donor advised fund administrator has ample time to turn around the grant request and get the check in the mail to us. Gift restrictions should not be encouraged. The reason for that is that we process over 20,000 gift designations every year through Old Bills. The fewer special requests that we receive, the easier it is for us to efficiently get gifts entered, and the easier it is for you on the back end to track and comply with any donor requests. We obviously will honor donor requests, and we will enter them on the gifts so that you can see them or indicate special recognition wishes in honor of, etc. But it's super helpful if your organization does not encourage that in any way. Quick reminder, the Community Foundation of Jackson Hole provides tax receipts on all of the gifts received through Old Bills, so you should not be providing any of your donors with a tax receipt. Please do provide them with a thank you in whatever form is appropriate for them, written, email, phone call, or otherwise. And finally, no goods and services may be provided for any gift through Old Bills Fun Run. The gifts must be 100% tax deductible. I will pause here briefly and just see if there are any questions on the guidelines regarding contributions. Okay, next slide. Okay, this gets into a little bit of the expectation management that I talked about. So this graph shows the cumulative number of gifts that we received during 2018 event. I did not update it for 2019 because it was a little bit tedious to prepare in the first place. place, but it is indicative of what the giving pattern looks like through Old Bill's Fun Run. And what you can see here is that throughout the month of August, gifts come in at a fairly slow and steady pace. And what you will see is that after the event, which in 2018 occurred on September 7th, there is a steep increase in gifts received in the very final week. Next slide. Shown another way, at the start of the giving period, the gifts begin to slowly trickle in, and by the end of August, about 20% have actually been submitted to the Community Foundation. So if you are looking at DonorView during the month of August, particularly early in the month of August, please don't panic if you don't see any gifts, because very few have actually been received during the entire month of August. You'll only have possibly 20% of your gifts visible in DonorView at that point in time. By Old Bill's Run Day itself, about a third of gifts have come in to the Community Foundation. The flip side of that is that over 60% of the gifts that will come in through Old Bill's Fun Run have not yet been made by Run Day. So even on Run Day, when you look at DonorView and you think to yourself, oh my God, I'm never going to make my target for Old Bill's, please be patient. Please don't panic. The gifts will come in, and almost 2/3 will come in the very final week of the event, which is after Run Day and before the gift deadline. What you can also see in this graph, which shows the receipt of gifts by date, as well as how much we've posted, which is what you would see in DonorView, we're fairly well on track up through Run Day. We're basically able to stay on top of entering what we've received, consistent with that flow. What you'll see is that as we get hammered in the last week of the event, our ability to keep up with gift entry is blown out of the water. We will enter gifts pretty steadily from August 1st all the way through October, but because of the pattern of receipt, there's this huge bubble that is created by the end of the giving period that takes us a whole nother month to work our way through. So with that in mind, we ask for your patience after the gift deadline while we continue to steadily enter all of the gifts that come in, and to appreciate that it's really very difficult for us to verify whether anything is in-house or not, or to check on the status of any particular donor or any particular gift. So as tempting as it is, and I understand how much all of you are participating want to know whether a particular gift that was promised to you actually made it in by the deadline, it's next to impossible for us to easily verify that. So we simply ask for your patience and your understanding, and the fewer times you call us or email us asking for information, the faster we'll be able to get everything entered. So that's a little bit of what our life looks like in August and September and into October. And we do our best to get you the information as quickly as we can, and we appreciate your understanding while we do that. And next up, Ann Bradley is going to talk to you about marketing.
Thank you, Karen. So my name is Ann Bradley, and I'm the Community Foundation's Director of Marketing and Communications. And a brief overview on the marketing collateral that we have to offer during Old Bills. Organizations may pick up to 200 brochures on a first-come, first-served basis at the Community Foundation starting on August 1st. Supplies are limited, so if you do want those brochures, please come sooner rather than later. You are welcome to disseminate Old Bill's brochures, but we do ask that you not mail to Teton County donors from the past 3 years, because those folks will already be receiving them from the Community Foundation directly. Receiving multiple brochures is one of the top donor complaints that we receive. Nonprofits with constituents outside of Teton County may mail the brochures to them. And please remember, as Karen said, no postal, patron, or box holder mailings. We will send you logos, the Old Bills logos, once you're accepted into the race in late June, and those will go to each organization's contact person, so be on the lookout for those. You can, and we encourage you to use our logos as soon as you receive them. Just please don't alter the logo or any of the dimensions. We also ask that you don't use our logo in any ads that are for-profit services that your organization might offer. Please also don't use our logo on any product that you plan on selling. If you have additional questions, there are more details in the rules and procedures document, so please take time to review those. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me either now, after the fact, or as we get closer to Old Bills. Now I will hand it over to Casey Karstens.
Thank you, Anne. Hello, everyone. My name is Casey Karstens, and I'm the new Old Bills coordinator working with Annie Riddell. My role is focused on Old Bills events. So before I begin my discussion about Run Day and booth meetings for nonprofits, as Lori said at the beginning of the meeting, we want to assure you that even if COVID-19 causes the cancellation of Old Bills 2020 events, the fundraiser will still happen. So with guidance from local and state health officials, the Community Foundation plans to decide whether or not to proceed with Old Bills events by early July. At that time, we will contact participating nonprofits with an update. So assuming Old Bills events are not canceled as a result of the pandemic, the following is an overview of Run Day and the nonprofit booth meeting. So Run Day will, of course, be the morning of Saturday, September 12th on Town Square. If you haven't been, Run Day is a very fun and festive celebration of community and philanthropy. An estimated 3,500 people enjoy nonprofit booths, free food, entertainment, 5K, 10K, walk, run, costumes, and lots of merriment. It is a great opportunity to showcase the impactful work that local nonprofits are doing. There is a limited number of booth spots on Town Square. Over 200 nonprofits participate in Old Bills, but only about 100 booth spots are available. And also construction on Town Square may impact the number of booth spots available this September. If your organization would like to host a booth on Run Day, you must do two things. Number one, request a booth in your application. If there is a chance you'll want a booth, please indicate this in the application. You can always cancel. Be aware that booth selection order is based on the order in which applications are received. So the earlier you submit your application, the more likely to get a booth spot. Also, the earlier you apply, the better selection you'll have. We want to let you know that in 2019, all booth spots were taken by organizations that applied within the first 24 hours of the application period. Number two, if you would like to host a booth on Run Day, you need to attend the mandatory booth meeting on Monday, August 24th from 1 to 2 p.m. at Teton County Library, assuming it's open. This is where booth spots are selected and booth hosting guidelines are reviewed. If you do not attend this meeting, you will lose your booth space. We encourage you to make your booths interactive and avoid excess materials that might become waste. Old Bills has a green event certification through Council for Responsible Sport, and we appreciate nonprofits working with us to minimize our environmental impact. Organizations that don't end up with booths often ask how they can have a presence at the event, and our suggestion is either to volunteer or walk as an organization. Your group could wear clothes, or better yet, costumes with your organization's logo or that reflect your organization's mission. So if you're interested, Old Bills volunteer opportunities will be posted on volunteerjh.org this spring and summer. It looks like there's a question. Let me go check that. What was the date? Decision will be made on whether Run Day will happen or not. We do not have an exact date at this time. We're just kind of basing it on what we hear from the health department, and we should know by early July. Another question, can you share a booth? I believe yes, and that is almost encouraged because not everyone gets one, and it's a little sad, but yes, you can share a booth. So if there are any more questions, you can keep popping them up. I'll keep checking back, but next slide, please. All right. So
Casey, can I add a quick comment on
yes.
the sharing a booth?
Yes.
If you are interested in sharing a booth, everybody who is at the booth has to have attended the booth meeting. So you can't miss the booth meeting and then ask to share a booth. So if you want a presence at a booth in any way, shared or not, please plan on attending the booth meeting, just for clarification.
Yes, great point. Thank you, Karen.
Yep.
All right, so here is the main Old Bills 2020 dates. There's a full list, if you would refer to that in your important dates document that you received in the email prior to this meeting. That will have all of the important dates in there. These are just a couple of the main ones. As you can see, the application period is May 1st through the 15th. Please celebrate the launch of the giving season with us on Friday, July 31st from 3:30 to 5 p.m. at the Community Foundation. Details will be sent through email this summer. So we also want to note there are 2 mandatory events. Like I said before, the August 24th booth meeting is mandatory if you want to host a booth on Run Day. And the second mandatory event is the awards party at the National Museum of Wildlife Art. This is where Old Bills grants checks are given out, and we do say it's mandatory out of respect for co-challengers. Any more questions at this point? Let me just check. Okay. If anything comes up, go ahead and submit more questions. And now I will hand things over to Annie Riddell.
Thank you, Casey. I am Annie Riddell. I am the Community Foundation's Education and Outreach and Education Programs Officer. I know many of you through my former role with Old Bills, which Casey is now in. I'll still be involved with the event, working closely with Casey. There's an important person that you can't see right now, and that is Cindy Corona. Cindy is the Foundation's Grants and Program Associate, and she is currently driving our technology. Cindy and I are going to go through some parts of the Old Bills application with you. Full disclosure, Cindy and I currently have 5 children who are not being supervised, so excuse us if we get disrupted by a little person. Couple reminders, the application goes live tomorrow at 9 a.m. It's due by 5 o'clock on May 15th. And as has been mentioned a few times, the order of booth selection is determined by the application submission order. So if you think you want a booth, go ahead and apply tomorrow morning and within the first day, because that's when we've been noticing that the booths have been fully claimed by. So I'd love to, let's see, Cindy, are you able to get to the application here or to the Community Foundation homepage? Sorry, we will be right back with you.
Am I still on are you guys still seeing the slideshow?
We're still seeing the slideshow.
Okay. Give me 1 second.
Okay, there we go, great. So I'd love for everybody to access the Old Bills application tip sheet, which was page 10 to 12 of the materials that I emailed you yesterday. You can identify, if you haven't already downloaded it and can't see page numbers, it's this one with the big yellow highlight on it. If you can take a look at that while we go through the application, that would be great. So the first thing we're going to discuss is logging in or pardon me, phone is ringing. Logging in or registering as a grant administrator. So you need to be a grant administrator in order to complete to even access the Old Bills application starting tomorrow at 9. So if you go to the home page of the Community Foundation website, which is cfjacksonhole.org, and then go to the top right corner, which is logins, open that up and scroll down to Grantee View. That is the first step. Those of you who have used Grantee View before and are registered grant administrators, either through having filled out the Old Bills application in the past or a competitive grants application, you were able to just log in at the bottom of the page. Just a reminder, the Grantee View username is always an email. There's some confusion about that, and I'm going to touch on that in a minute here, but just make sure if you're having any difficulty logging into Grantee View that you're using an email address as your username. And then you use whatever password you created when you set up the account, when you registered originally. If you have any problems with your password, please contact Cindy Corona or me. We're having a little bit of trouble with the forgot password link that you can see on the screen there. Our email addresses are in the materials that you've received. Let's see, if you are a new user, you're gonna need to register as a grant administrator. Can you go back to that, Cindy, to where people can find grant administrator? There you go. So right above where you would log in, you can register as a grant administrator. There is some information in the packet that I emailed you discussing the details of registering to become a grant administrator. Just please be aware there is a multi-step process and it's not an immediate registration. And so if your organization wants to host a booth and you're going to be in a rush to fill out the application tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., I really recommend you make sure that you can log in today and let us know if you have any issues. You will be getting an email as part of the registration process from an address, program services at cfjacksonhole.org. Please check your spam. We found that this tends to go in people's spam and then they're waiting on that and don't complete the process. Also, please note that it expires within 24 hours. So if that happens, you need to start the registration process again. Let's see. I just want to take a moment to make an important distinction that confuses the heck out of a lot of people. There are two online platforms that you will use as an Old Bills participant. One is Grantee View, and that's where you complete the application. And that's what we're discussing today. And the other platform is Donor View, and that's where you view your donations, the ones that have been designated to your organization during the giving season. So you will log into both platforms on the same page, this page that Cindy has pulled up right now, but using different credentials. So you don't need to worry about Donor View right now. We're going to be back in touch with you about Donor View in July. Just focus on Grantee View and remember that your user ID is an email address. Let's see, and for Donor View, it'll be a word or an acronym that gets assigned by the Community Foundation. So don't even think about Donor View, just know that to get into Grantee View, you need a user ID that is an email address. Now we're going to log in and let's see, once you are logged in here, you are going to click on the link that says apply for Old Bills or Tin Cup. There you go. And the next page says welcome to the online grant application. You click on the Old Bills bubble there, and then you will answer this question here. Presumably most people will say yes, and hit submit. And then on this next page, you are going to want to enter Old Bills Fun Run 2020. And click Start. And you will enter the different, you can choose the sections of the application. Now, we're not actually I'm gonna go through some highlights of the application, but we're not gonna go through it on this platform. But I do want you to note a few things while you're filling it out. Number one is that you should be saving and going to the next page after you're finished with each page. That's a button at the bottom. And that's something that you ought to do so that if you come back later, if you can't complete it in one sitting, you will be able to access it, the one that you've been working on. Cindy's going to show you where that is. Save and go to next. You can also save and resume later. Cindy, will you show folks where they can find their partially completed applications? There you go, off in that left menu. At the end of the application, you will want to click submit and also save your, there we go, Cindy's showing you the PDFs that you can, of your old applications or your current applications that you can look at. When you're done with the application, you click submit, and also there's an option to save your application as a PDF, which will allow you to easily save it digitally or print it for record keeping. Cindy, let's go back to the slideshow. There's a question here from Rainey. Does the grant administrator need to be the same person as the main contact? Doesn't have to be. You can specify whoever you want to be your Old Bills contact, but it often is the same person. Okay, let's go to application highlights, Cindy. Great, okay. So on the topic of the contact person, Rainey, because we work with over 200 nonprofits, we require that one person be the designated Old Bills contact. This person, Karen mentioned this earlier, is in charge of distributing materials as appropriate within their organization. So please ensure it's a person who is attentive and responsive to emails, which is the primary way that we communicate with participating organizations. On that note, please ensure that whoever the contact person is whitelists the domain cfjacksonhole.org so that emails from our staff don't go into spam. If your organization is not a 501c3, you'll need a qualified fiscal sponsor and a letter from that fiscal sponsor. There are details on this in the rules and procedure document, which is the first 5 pages of the download that I sent you. Mission statement. So you will be asked to specify your mission statement in 25 words or less in the application. Please be aware that mission statements are copied verbatim and visible to donors in the online shopping cart. So they're also something we refer to when we're talking with donors. So please make sure that they're clear and concise. Use of funds is also a topic within the application. With the exception of religious organizations, all participating nonprofits are approved for general operating expenses. Religious organizations do need to enter 1 to 3 allowable uses of funds in that section. By the way, on Tuesday, I sent out all of the application questions, which includes the 2019 grant report for returning organizations. Hopefully you all received that either through the listserv or if you are an Old Bills contact from last year. But if you didn't and would like to see that so you can prepare for tomorrow and the next 2 weeks, please email me and I'll send it over. Field of interest is another topic of the application. You will have a drop-down menu in which you can specify that your organization is associated with arts and culture, animals, civic, conservation and environment, education, health and human services, and sports and recreation. So choose one. If you're unsure about your field of interest, look at your mission statement for guidance. Let's see. The grant report is also a part of the application. The majority of organizations will be asked to fill this out. These are organizations that participated in 2019. All the questions for that, again, were sent out on Tuesday. So you have a little preview there. Feel free to keep us posted with questions. If your organization is new, please just enter NA or 0 in the mandatory fields of the grant report. There is a series of test statements. Those test statements appear in the application questions that I sent out, so you can take a look at those in advance. It's important to realize that we require that 2 different people from your organization offer their e-signatures to attest to the statements. They don't need to necessarily both log in, but we do need to make sure that 2 people from your organization have reviewed your application and can attest to it, its accuracy. So that is at the end of the application, and you can certainly, if you're the person filling out the application, you can enter someone else's signature with their consent. Again, a reminder to save and or print your application as a record. And as Cindy showed you earlier, you can also access it via your Grantee View account. Slide, please, Cindy. When you click submit, you should get this screen that we have a little screen grab of. And you should also receive an email that says that your grant application has been submitted. Please check your spam. Sometimes it goes there. Again, if you add cfjacksonhole.org, the handle of all of our email addresses, it should mitigate the chance that your confirmation or any of our other emails go into spam. But please know that if you don't get this confirmation screen and you don't get the email, there's a good chance your application was not submitted. So please ensure that you get that. And if you have any trouble, please contact us at the foundation. A slide, please, Cindy. Cindy and I are available to offer application support as needed. Please be aware that, like a lot of people, we don't have any childcare right now. And so if you are on the website at 9 a.m. in the morning tomorrow, we might not be immediately available to help you. So we will do our best to get back to you promptly, but we recognize there's some time pressure associated with tomorrow for those of you who want a booth, but please be patient with us because we, like a lot of people, are managing the home situation as well as work. Here are our email addresses, again, also in the materials that were sent to you. I'm going to take a quick look at questions now. Let's see. Karen Coleman says you will enter the name and email for the designated contact in your Old Bills application. How important is my field of interest in the case that my organization falls under a couple of fields? Dory, this isn't critical. I would just say take your best guess at it, and if we need to reallocate it, or here's Karen to answer that.
I put a comment in there too. I realize that some people cover a few different areas. I would select that which you feel is your primary area of focus, and I would consider what the goal of your mission is, not necessarily how you deliver programs to serve that mission. So for example, if you do education programs in service of a conservation mission, your field of interest should be conservation, not education, if that makes sense.
Karen, I'm going to let you take the next one as well, the one from Kristen.
The signatures need to reflect 2 different authorized representatives of your organization. So an example would be your executive director and your board chair or another board officer. It could be an executive director and a CFO. If you don't have any paid staff, it could be a board chair and board treasurer, but they should be 2 different authorized representatives.
Okay. And it looks like somebody would like us to go back a slide. Cindy, can you go back 1 slide? And by the way, all of this information is encapsulated in the rules and procedures. And if you have any additional questions that aren't in there, please feel free to contact us. Pete is asking when and where this meeting recording will be available for the contact person to review. We'll put it on the Community Foundation website, Pete. I don't know where yet, but it'll go up in the next few days. We'll make it clear where to find it. Probably on the For Nonprofits page of the Old Bills part of the website. Mary asks, can it be the person doing the application and one other? Yes, Mary, it can, as long as you're both authorized representatives. Okay, let's see. Okay, I think that those are all the questions. Of course, we are open for business and happy to answer anything else offline. Cindy, if you can go 2 slides forward now, and I'm going to hand it back over to Lori to wrap things up.
Thank you to everyone again for joining us today. And again, these are the emails if you have more questions. Please be certain that you signed in on the chat to so that we know that you have been part of this, and it is very important that you do that. So again, go down to the chat and sign in for your organization if you are new to Old Bills or you skipped 2019. Any last questions? All right, well, thank you all. We are looking forward to seeing you in the near future as we all come out of this, and in the fall we will celebrate together. Thanks for joining us today. Thank you.